Welcome to the Town of Avon Advisory Plan Commission meeting. If you're interested in having a copy of the agenda or the staff reports, they are available on the tables to the right of the audience. We will be conducting business as outlined on the agenda. From time to time, the board may deviate from the agenda. As president of this body, I will inform those in attendance of any deviations. This meeting is being recorded for the public record. Because of this, we request that personal conversations are kept to a minimum, that all cell phones are set to vibrate with any phone calls taken outside of the chambers. If you are interested in commenting during the public hearing, please sign up on the sheets located on the tables to the right of the audience. When your name is called, please step forward to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Please address your comments to the board and not to the staff or to the petitioner. Your comments should relate directly to the case at hand. Responses to public comments will be given once the hearing is closed. We do understand that there may be several persons who wish to speak. In order to keep the meeting running in a timely fashion, we request that you not repeat previous comments. Thank you for your assistance in facilitating a respectful, fair, and timely meeting. Again, welcome to our meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Captain Ransford,
Here.
Bill Reed,
Here.
Grant Niemeyer,
Here.
Ed Rosenbaum, James Patrice,
Here.
we have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, moving. We have minutes from April 27th and October 25th. So are there any changes or additions to the minutes as presented? Anyone? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
I move we approve the September 27th, 2021 meeting minutes. And should I do this two separate or one motion? Okay, as well as the October 25th, 2021 regular meeting minutes.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
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 Opposed? Minutes approved. Committee reports. BZA.
Board of Zoning Appeals didn't have a meeting this month. They didn't have any business, so they didn't meet.
Any questions for BZA? Okay, RDC.
At our most recent meeting, we approved several invoices, had a County Road 100 South update, talked about a couple of pending change orders for 100 South. Also, our annual meeting with Greg Garretaz, public hearing and confirmatory resolution 21-07 for Avon Logistics allocation area. Town hall remodel quotes were gone over briefly, in addition to engagement letters from Financial Solutions Group for Avon Landing and Avon Logistics.
Questions for RDC? Okay. Town council. Anyone? Nobody? Okay, so town council has been quiet on how things went, so. Request for continuance and agenda modifications, please.
So we do have three different agenda modifications. The petitioner's here on the first two, PUD 2101, the Old Huff Homes PUD. I believe they want to request a continuance on that petition to the 20th of December. And ZA 2108, the Old Huff Homes Kilcarney rezoning, they have requested via email a withdrawal of that particular petition. And then the third item on your agenda, DPR 2116, the petitioner has requested a continuance to the 20th of December on that one to do some site design and some building design work on their proposal. That is their first request for a continuance, so that's a by right continuance. Now, the first two are on an old business, so the by right continuance has already expired. Obviously, the staff has no objection to any of these continuance requests. And we just suggest that you do continue those to the 20th of December and then acknowledge the withdrawal of ZA 2108. And like I said, the petitioner is here to talk about the first two on the agenda if you have any questions.
So if the one's withdrawn, we don't need a motion on that. Correct? Correct. We don't need a motion.
No, I'll just acknowledge that it's been withdrawn.
So does anyone have any objections to continuing PUD 21-01 or ZA 21-08? Okay, so as noted on there. And DPR 2116, we need a motion on that? We don't.
Actually,
We should.
ZA 2108 is withdrawn.
I'm sorry, DPR 21-16. You're right.
Okay, so we're continuing PUD 2101 and DPR 2016, correct?
Correct.
And then ZA 2108 is being withdrawn.
So we just need a motion on the continuance of this.
Yes, but DPR 2116, the rise under new business. Need a motion on that.
We can have one motion for both if you wish.
Okay.
I move that we continue agenda item PUD 21-01, Old Homes PUD, and agenda item DPR 21-16, Rise Avon LLC, to the December 20th meeting at the petitioner's request.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Continued.
Do we need an acknowledgement on the withdrawal then, or just,
We did that.
okay.
So, staff report DPR 21-17.
Was that? Yeah, I got a public comment and then
I'm sorry.
on the agenda.
Thank you, sorry. So, tonight, if there's anyone in the audience who would like to speak on public comments on any items not on tonight's agenda, please come forward. Is there anybody signed up? Do we know? Once again, that's for any items not on tonight's agenda. Okay, is there anyone that would like to speak under public comments? That was opened at 6:38. Going to close that at 6:39 under public comment. Sorry. All right. Old business taken care of. New business. I'm sorry. DPR 21-16.
DPR 21-17, the Rise Avon one has been continued. The DPR 2117 Rural King Edition. This is the request for approval of development plan petition for a proposed overhead canopy on the west side of the building and outdoor sales exceeding 25% of the under roof area. 12.08 acre parcel is located approximately 7508 Beechwood Center Road. And this property is located in Tier 2 of the US Highway 36 overlay in Zone C2. This particular petition has significant history associated with it, all dealing with the outdoor storage, display, and operations associated with the inhabitant or the occupancy of this tenant space by Rural King. And I won't go over each one of those. Essentially, it allowed a certain amount of outdoor storage and display and operations, and then the special exception allowed for the sales of equipment and leasing. Property is located obviously in the Beechwood Center Shopping Center. Rural King purchased this property about a year ago, and then modified it and did some modifications to the structure in order to do their operations from it. Shortly after purchasing it, they did find out that some of their outdoor operations and display that they typically do with their stores would not be permitted in the overlay district, and they did petition the Board of Zoning Appeals for several use variances, development standards variances, and one special exception to do those outdoor display and operations. The exterior modifications to the building are largely fenced-in lots, both to the to the north behind the building and on the west side of the building. They're going to open that building up and put a sort of a mini garden center on the west side of the building. And that garden center would have a roofed structure associated with it. Their main outdoor storage and display area is on the southwest part of the parking lot, about as remote a parking space as you can, or the most remote place in their parking lot from their store. There were several discussions with the Board of Zoning Appeals, and those discussions involved eventually the board agreeing to approve the variances and special exception, allowing them, and that was conditional based upon a site plan. Most of the structural improvements that you have before you tonight are not improvements that require development plan review. The fencing of the outdoor storage lots, even possibly putting the roof over the outside structure on the west end. What is required on the development plan review, however, is shown in section 4-83 of the ordinance, which is the amount of outdoor storage and display that they're showing. The ordinance specifies that if a land use is using or has more than 25% of their under roof area for outdoor storage, display, and operations, then that does have to come to you through a development plan review petition. And this proposal does, the proposal that's been approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals allows for 32,000 square feet, give or take, of outdoor storage, display, and operations. And they do have about 66,000 square feet under roof. So it's just shy of half the under roof area is included as outdoor storage operations. The request that you've seen before you is consistent with the requirements of the zoning ordinance and the subdivision control ordinance as they were modified by the land use petitions approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals. So from a development plan review standpoint, what the Rural King has proposed is consistent with the ordinance. Now, there's a couple issues with it that are handled by conditions upon our staff report. One thing that has happened in the recent past, so one of the conditions of the Board of Zoning Appeals is to install some fencing and landscaping, and one in their parking lot and along their buffer yards. And about 2 months ago or so, Rural King did begin to put that fencing up. But as they were working along this property line right here, removing some of the vegetation, I guess I could do it right here, this vegetation along this area right here, some of the neighbors in the nearby the nearby residential development neighborhood there, they got upset because that vegetation was an effective screen, and they rightly said that why remove a bunch of existing mature vegetation and put in a 6-foot fence. So Rural King did stop taking out the vegetation along this and stop installing the fences. I think they were doing that. They did that in order to wait until the development plan review petition has been approved by you. And then they're going to, what they would have had to do is they have to put a fence around here. They have to put a fence right around here. They have to put some screening up in their outdoor storage, which is located here and here. It's a certainty type fence. They have some outdoor storage that's approved right here. But like I said, this is their main outdoor storage area right there. This just shows you, this is another copy straight from the plan showing the landscaping plan. They're augmenting the landscaping in the landscape islands. They're putting a fairly significant landscape screen around here. They are marking some of their, doing some pavement marking to delineate the path from the store to the outdoor storage and display area. And all that has been approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals. The other issue that we have in our staff report is these are the renderings that's submitted. This is supposed to be a roofed structure. It doesn't show a roof structure on the elevations. So what we have asked for during our recommendation is that those elevations be amended so it shows the roof structure on that one. So we do recommend approval of this site development plan petition, subject to those four conditions up there. And the first two are atypical for you on development plan reviews. And the one is that the fencing and landscape plan may be revised along the northwestern property boundary in order to prevent some of the existing vegetation, or in order to preserve some of the existing vegetation along the buffer yard between the residential neighborhood and the commercial development. And then the second one is that the elevations be amended to include that roof structure along the western boundary. The other three are pretty typical for development plan petitions that come before you. And I see that I've got my numbering system a little bit off there. So it should be 5 conditions instead of 4. But having said that, that is the staff's recommendation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions for staff?
So Bill, they put the fence up because the town asked them to, or?
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Were they putting the fence up because the town asked them to, or for their own security reasons?
Because we asked them to. We asked them to screen the fence around, especially that main little outdoor display area. We asked them to put an 8-foot fence on there. And the Board of Zoning Appeals approved an 8-foot fence and some augmented landscaping around that to sort of shield it from view from US 36 especially.
So the neighbors didn't like it.
Well, what the neighbors didn't like was, as they're putting up the 8-foot fence along, it's hard to show on here, but along this boundary right here, there is a significant amount of mature vegetation there.
Did we think they were going to leave the vegetation up when the town asked them to put the fence up?
I don't know if we even thought that far
Kudos to them
ahead,
that they
quite
tried to
honestly.
take care of the neighbors. I'm glad they did. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, what happened was they had started to remove, and they've removed vegetation right here, and these neighbors started calling the town. And so they stopped removing the vegetation in hopes that we could amend the landscaping or at least try to preserve as much of the landscaping as possible along this area right here.
Well, I'd be pro-vegetation, so I think it's good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Other questions for staff?
So we're asking Rural King to revise their landscaping plan, which may or may not include a fence. Is that, I guess, what we're getting at?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the takeaway is we may not have a fence in that area right there. So what we're going to do is look at it a little bit more closely, and if the existing landscape screen serves the purposes of a fence, for lack of a better term, we're not going to require them to remove mature landscaping that's effectively screening the commercial shopping center from that neighborhood to put an 8-foot tall fence.
So the purpose is to provide privacy
Right.
and
To provide a higher,
block, not like a chain link fence. or
right. Well, it would be a certainty. It would be a vinyl fence is what they're putting up. Now, each one of those property owners has their own fence along their backyard. So they each have wood shadow box fences there.
something. Okay.
And so the criticisms that the town received when it started were, why are they putting up a fence right next to my fence, right up against the fence? And then why are they removing all of the mature vegetation along that pond and then installing a fence? Wouldn't the
Right.
mature vegetation serve the purpose of the fence?
Okay.
And we sort of concurred with that assessment. And so what we're asking for, especially on that condition, is giving us the opportunity, the flexibility anyway, to accept the mature vegetation in lieu of the fence and just leave it there if we can.
And just a small portion on that corner, on that
Yeah, just a real small part right about
southwest
here
section there.
was torn out. They started tearing it out, and that's when these neighbors started calling the town. And the Rural King, to their credit, stopped removing the vegetation.
And are they going to be replacing that vegetation?
No, they're not gonna, they didn't really remove a lot.
Okay.
You know, it maybe been one half of one lot down there, so I don't think they need to, they may plant a tree or two in there. But I think what we'd better off doing is just sort of letting it sit there. We might ask them to, you know, grub out some of the undergrowth or something like that, but leave the mature trees and those sorts of things around there. And if we can't fit a fence in there, I mean, the vegetative screen serves the same purpose, so we just leave the vegetative screen.
So there's no concern about kids going into the water or falling in there or anything?
No, it's been
That's the only
like-
reason I can see why you have a fence is to keep kids from falling into the water, but.
Yeah, I mean, the pond has been there for years. And like I said, each one of those neighbors backing up to that fence do have a fenced-in backyard back there. So they've individually taken care of the attractive nuisance of having their children cross into that pond.
So in light of those items, on page 3 of our report, and with the location of the landscaping or the mature vegetation, the lighting standard wasn't reviewed, but aren't they not going to have lighting in that area for that outdoor facility? And do we need to worry about light infiltration on those neighbors? Because that would obviously be, I think, a concern, potential concern.
They aren't installing any new fixtures.
So no, okay.
No, they weren't going to install any new lighting fixtures or anything like that. They were just going to use the existing lighting fixtures that are there. The only thing they're really retrofitting into the site, one, they're using that small parking area for outdoor display and operations, and they're using it now. So you could, if you've gone out there, you've seen the tractor implements and other sorts of things that are in that area. They started putting the fence up, and then when they ran into the issue with the neighbors, they sort of stepped back, and they're waiting for that situation to mature, see what we do here, before they finish installing the fences. But they install a fence essentially right around here, and here, right about there, and then install landscaping. They're gonna, this little landscape island does not exist, so they'll install a little landscape island in here to more define the in and out points for vehicular traffic going through this outdoor display area, and then install landscaping, as you can see, and retrofit some landscaping to ordinance standards here and here. But they're not changing the lighting scheme of the parking lot the way it is right now.
Okay, so right off the bat, I want to commend the staff, because sometimes people look at rules and look at things, but the purpose of the fence is to screen.
Right.
And we have a screen. Kudos to staff for taking a wait and see and intelligent look, and good governance means actually using your head for change and not necessarily following black and white. And that doesn't always happen. But on
I think you
page,
use your head a lot, just for the record.
I
do
appreciate
too.
that.
There's several walls with
sincere.
dents here that have my head mark on them.
So on page 4, engineering is under review. Has that happened yet?
Yeah, we've reviewed it, or the engineering firm has reviewed it. Now, to their credit, they highlighted some things, but I didn't necessarily. So they hired some issue. They highlighted some issues with providing like a. Greg can probably speak to it better. Topographic map of the site, but the site is so old that there's no existing topography. And they're not increasing the impervious surface. Like I said, they're just basically, they're removing, actually removing a little bit down there. And then they're putting a roofed structure over an existing impervious area. So I sort of used my authority to say, we don't need a topographic survey. What the problem is the engineering firm didn't want to do the expense of doing site elevations and putting together a topographic map.
So I was looking at the black and white.
Yeah.
So I made my comments based on the ordinance, but there were some other issues that we were looking at constructability wise. Nothing that would concern us as far as drainage goes. Just making sure that the contractor, as he gets out on site, would understand what he's doing, specifically with the installation of some of the curb islands and things like that. But we've got things covered, taken care of to where approval with conditions of meeting all,
the last couple comments that we had,
And
which,
that's my real question, is that there's no issues that don't have a solution proposed
no,
to
we're
resolve those issues?
correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, in a lot of these situations where we have legacy buildings like this, we like to take a look at it and sort of mesh it against modern standards to see if we can identify any potential problems in the future and maybe mitigate those at an early time. In this particular case, because the DPR technically the DPR is for the outdoor storage, because I don't think the roofed structure crosses the threshold for them to actually need a DPR for that. We could administratively approve it and move forward with it, but they do need the DPR for the outdoor storage and operation. So that's really why they're here. And it's really not changing anything on the site other than installing some fencing, some landscaping, and then a roof on the west side of the building.
Okay. And the south side's all industrial, as far as I know, right? So really the only residential is on the west side.
Yeah, the residential's on the west side. So the lot immediately to the west of the outdoor storage and display lot is unimproved. It's a vacant lot, but to the north of that is where the neighborhood starts.
Other questions for staff? Okay, hearing none, if the petitioner could please come forward.
Yeah, that's you.
We don't have any issues with everything that's presented.
Before you get
Oh,
started,
sorry.
could you please state your name and address for the record?
David Farmer, 7352 Hempridge Road, Shelbyville, Kentucky, 40065.
Thank you.
So we don't have any issues with what's presented. We're actually on board with leaving the vegetation. We had lots of angry neighbors. They did send us a petition. I sent that to Bill, that all of them signed off on keeping the vegetation. But other than that, we're good with the plan.
Do you have any plans to add any more trees, anything you've torn off or anything? Is there any?
Yeah, I sent Bill a couple days ago. We had a revised plan that showed a little bit of vegetation that we added there and some trees on that line.
What kind of trees are there? Are they deciduous or coniferous or what?
I would have to go back and look at the plan. I don't remember.
But they're satisfied with the existing vegetation that's out there minus the areas that were cut?
Right, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Questions for petitioner? Okay. in that
I just
case-
want to say thank you. It looks like common sense prevailed both on the rural king side and on the town side. And I'm pretty proud of how it worked out. So thank you for listening to neighbors.
Yeah.
You could have just gone and done it regardless because you had it approved, but you stopped. So
We
thank
like
you.
happy neighbors. We don't like mad neighbors, so.
Okay, I'm going to close this at 6:57. So at this point, I'm going to open up the floor for public comment. Is there anyone that signed up to speak? Is there anyone that would like to speak on this issue that has not signed up? Please come forward and state your name and address.
Hi, I'm Deanna Moore. I'm at 4890 Rutledge Road, Avon, Indiana. With the vegetation, one thing that I would like for the town council to consider is removal of invasive species, specifically for those items that might be listed on the Indiana Department Natural Resources list, like burning bushes, any Japanese honeysuckle that might be a part of that vegetation, calorary tree, pear trees, those kinds of things. So if we've got an opportunity to get rid of that in Rural King's plan, I'd like for that to be considered.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak? Okay, closing public comment at 6:59. Commission, questions, comments?
Well, I agree with that. I'm glad that everybody seemed to be very rational in their response all the way around, and glad that our Mr. Peoples used his head.
Other questions, comments? Care to make a motion?
I move that we approve DPR 21-17 Rural King Edition, subject to the following conditions. The fencing and landscape plan may be revised along the northwestern property boundary in order to preserve some of the existing vegetation, providing an effective buffer between the residential neighborhood and the commercial development. Number 2, the building elevations shall be amended to incorporate a roof structure along the western property boundary in accordance with the Board of Zoning Appeals approval and the submitted site plan. Number 3, any revised plans must comply with all commitments and conditions noted as part of any approval granted. Number 4, landscape bond is required per section 4-9 of the zoning ordinance. The bond must be provided to the town of Avon prior to the issuance of a full certificate of occupancy for the subject site. And number 5, the development shall comply with all relevant portions of town code and comments by Public Works, Fire Department, and Crossroad Engineers at the pre-construction meeting.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there comments, questions on the motion? Okay. Hearing none, we need a vote, please.
Catherine Ranford,
4.
Bill Reed,
4.
Grant Niemeyer,
4.
Ed Rosenbaum,
4.
James Peters,
4.
motion passes.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, DPR 21-18.
Yes, that is right. DPR 21-18, Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers. This is a request for development plan review to approve a 3,300 square foot restaurant with a drive-through. Let's see if I can move this to the right thing. Raising Cane's. So this is a request for approval for a development plan for a 3,300 square foot restaurant with a drive-through. There is some significant land use history associated with the subdivision, the Harvest Landing commercial subdivision, rezonings, plattings, development plan reviews. But we've deleted most of that and just provided you with the one special exception that was heard by the Board of Zoning Appeals that would have allowed a drive-through in the Tier 1 of the US 36 overlay district for this land use. It's right there at the intersection of the streets. It's Lot 3 of the Harvest Landing subdivision. And it would construct a restaurant on Lot 3 of that. It's Zone C2 and it's in the Tier 1 of the overlay district, which requires you to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a drive-through. They did go to the BZA and had a special exception approved to utilize a drive-through associated with this land use. And the proposal, as sitting before you, is consistent with all the requirements of the comprehensive plan, zoning ordinance, and subdivision control ordinance. This generally shows how the land use will sit on the site. The elevations of it comply with the architectural standards of the overlay, and we do recommend approval. Now, before I do this, I should say this because the petitioner in this particular case, and I normally don't do this sort of stuff, so if I'm overstepping my bounds, I'm sure you all can tell me. But in this particular case, the petitioner was outstanding in the way they did this. When we did our first review on this particular petition, literally there were 4 trees missing, and that was the only deviation from the zoning ordinance that we identified in our initial review on this. So we were, I wish all of our DPRs came to the town with this level of forethought and diving deep into our zoning ordinance. Again, we do recommend approval of this request subject to the 3 conditions, and I actually have those numbered correctly. Those 3 conditions you show. Those are the 3 standard conditions that we usually put on every development plan. Just in case there are revisions between here and the pre-construction meeting and the requirement of a landscape bond once the landscape is installed. So I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
So the letter from Greg from the 13th of October, that's all been resolved. Is that correct?
Thank you. We had a follow-up letter on November 9th. They just have a casting comment, so nothing major. I'm sure they'll be
Okay,
up.
so everything's been addressed.
And then a couple comments on the SWIP. So yes.
Questions for staff?
I know there's a proposed roundabout. It'd be at the northeast corner there. Is this site plan going to affect the future design or right of way?
I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I would have to ask, and I would have to ask the Public Works Director. Obviously, Public Works has had the opportunity to review this, and they had no comments other than what Greg has said at the TAC meeting.
Yeah, I don't know how much right of way is going to be required for that new.
The roundabout right up there, that's a few years into the future even, I think, if we even get to it. But the answer to the question is I don't know the answer to the question. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, my understanding was it's going to be pretty immediate as far as
Okay.
the roundabout.
I haven't talked to him about it, so I don't know the answer. Yeah, you're right. Now that I think back on it, I think he said he wanted to take some money and do the roundabout at that location, but I don't know what the status of that roundabout construction is.
Okay.
Has it even been approved yet? I don't think so, right?
I don't know. Yeah, I honestly don't know. I'd totally forgotten about the proposed roundabout at that location.
Okay.
So is that something you think needs to be looked at, discussed, or prior to the traffic flow?
But I don't know that that has anything to do with the request for a drive-through. That may,
That's my question. Do you think that would affect?
I mean, it seems to me like that would be more relevant to entrances into the lot, but not necessarily for the placement of that drive-through. Based on where I'm seeing the drive-through is based on it's set on the west side of the building.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it would be in the overlay. It can't be in the front. It's got to be on the sides of the and.
Right.
It could affect the configuration of the parking lot. And then be a domino effect from there.
Well, but if the parking lot is, I would think that having to adjust the parking lot based upon what I'm looking at here, again, tonight we're here talking about the drive-through. And we're basically just talking about parking spaces and,
But we're actually, it's the whole development. So this is a development plan, so you're dealing with the whole development. The Board of Zoning Appeals did already speak to the
Go over
drive-through.
this, so
Yeah.
it should be then irrelevant.
So the drive-through itself has been approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals. So you're only dealing right now with the layout of the lot as it is right now. And the only thing I can say about the potential of a roundabout at this location is that Public Works has reviewed this site plan. They had no comments about it, about needing right of way for the roundabout or anything like that. So I honestly don't know the answer to your question. I have talked to Steve about the roundabout, not in conjunction with this development plan, but in conjunction with previous development plans, about the plans, but I hadn't talked to him about this one, so I don't know the status of the roundabout.
Mr. Taylor, you've done well, so I've been watching, but you're good.
It's not a rezone. I mean, it's a DPR. And so if they have they have a right to come in and comply with our ordinance and which is what they've done. If the town has future road use plans that will come later, town will have to deal with that, either move the roundabout or acquire right of way, whatever the answer is. But for you on a DPR, your job is to say, do they comply with our ordinance? They have a right to move forward, and the town just has to work around them. And so unlike a rezone where that would be an issue for you, the only issue here is just whether their plan complies with our ordinances.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Other questions for staff? Okay, hearing none. open this up for public hearing at 7:10. Is there anyone signed up to speak?
No, I don't believe so.
Anyone signed up? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, petitioner, could you please come forward? That would help, wouldn't it? Sorry.
Good evening, and Bill, thank you so much for the kind words. I'm Debbie Stos with Premier Design Group, and I will say that working with your staff has been great, and that's why we had a complete set of drawings, is because they helped us out on the, what we call the pre-application calls. So with that, Bill did a great job presenting our project, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for petitioner? All right, hearing none. At 7:11, I'm going to open up the public hearing. Has anyone signed up to speak? Anyone like to speak on this that hasn't signed up? Okay, we're going to close public hearing at 7:12. Any questions for staff or petitioner? Someone care to make a motion?
I move that we approve DPR 2018 Rising Cane's Chicken Fingers, subject to the following conditions. Number one, any revised plans must comply with all commitments and conditions noted as part of any approval granted. Number two, a landscape bond is required per section 4-9 of the zoning ordinance. This bond must be provided to the town of Avon prior to the issuance of a full certificate of occupancy for the subject site. And three, the development shall comply with all relevant portions of town code and comments by Public Works, Fire Department, Crossroad Engineers at the pre-construction meeting.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussions or questions about the motion? Okay, can we have a vote, please?
Heather Mansberg,
4.
Bill Reed,
4.
Fran Niemeyer,
4.
Ed Rosenbaum,
4.
James Peters,
4.
motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, sorry, moving on. MAP 21-13.
MAPA 21-13 Avon Marketplace, Lot 4A, 4D. This is a request for approval of an amendment to a major subdivision plat to split the one remaining lot in the Avon Marketplace into 2 lots. The total acreage on this property is 3.114 acres, located at 8586 Kingston Street. The property is zoned C2, and it's located in Tier 2 and 3 of the US 36 Overlay District. As I said, it's an amendment to a major plat to split an existing Lot 4A into a Lot 4A and a 4D. There's already been 2 lot splits on this site. As you can see, there's a significant land use history associated with the Avon Marketplace as well. But the bottom 2 are the 2 that probably are the most relevant to this, and those are the splits, subsequent splits into lots on A, B, A, C, and this one that will create a lot, 4A, 4B, 4C, and this one which will create a lot 4D. Location just across the street from Satori Point, just along Kingston Street. Zone C2, as you can see, and it's the green outlined parcel to the west of the 2 existing properties. The lots 4A and 4C are lot 4A is lot 4B is under construction with a medical office. We anticipate another medical office of some sort being constructed on the lot to the south. And this lot is being split off to create a lot for, what we've heard is a hotel. So a hotel on one of these lots, and then I think the 1 acre lot will be for future development. As I said, it's a request to amend the plat to create 2 lots. The request that you see before you is consistent with all the requirements of the zoning ordinance and the subdivision control ordinance as they relate to the platting of this site. We do recommend approval of the request, and the 2 standard conditions for this subdivision. Any revised plans must comply with all commitments and conditions noted as part of any approval granted, and that the final plat will comply with all the relevant portions of the subdivision control ordinance and the town code. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions for staff? No questions for staff? All right.
I actually do have a question. So I'm looking at the map here, and I don't know my roads particularly. So we have Kingston Street on the south side, correct?
Right.
And if we divide this into two lots, I'm assuming there's an access road between the blue, if I'm looking at this map, between the blue rectangle and where it intersects with the red there, there's an access road there, I'm assuming? That,
There's an access easement. If you look at the plat document in your packets, lot 4A, Avon Marketplace, it shows the orientation of the lots, and I apologize. That should have been up there. But there is an access easement on lots 4B and 4C, and that access easement provides for shared access from Kingston Street for all 4 lots.
okay. Okay, I see. Okay, I see. So it's actually on the east side of that
Yeah.
area. Okay.
Yeah, there's an access easement there that provides access for all 4 lots from Kingston Street.
Okay.
Other questions for staff? Okay, hearing none, petitioner could please come forward.
Good evening, Brady Kuhn with Kuhn and Gustafson Land Surveying, offices at, 410 West Oak Street, Zionsville, Indiana. I think Mr. Peoples described this adequately. We're just dividing a single lot into 2 lots and believe that we comply with all the ordinance requirements. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions, comments for petitioner?
Do you have an anticipation of what you'll be putting on those 2 parcels?
The parcel to the south is undeveloped or at this point doesn't have anything planned for it. On the north parcel, at this point, it is a hotel use that's intending to come in there. But that'll be subject to further, DPR
Sure.
review, obviously.
Other questions, petitioner? Other questions, petitioner? All right, hearing none at 7:18, I'm going to open up for public comment. Has anyone signed up to speak?
We do not have anyone signed up.
No? Anyone care to speak that hasn't signed up to speak on this issue? Okay. 7:19, I'm going to close public comment. Other questions for petitioner? Staff? Motion?
I move that we approve MAPA 21-13 Avon Marketplace Lot 4A-4A-4D, a request to divide, I'm assuming that's supposed to mean, 3.114 acres into 2 lots, subject to the following conditions. 1, any revised plans must comply with all commitments and conditions noted as part of any approval granted. And 2, the final plat will comply with all the relevant portions of the subdivision control ordinance and the town code.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, can we have a vote, please?
Catherine Ransford,
4,
Bill Reed,
4.
Brandon Niemeyer,
4.
Ed Rosenbaum,
4.
James Petrutis,
4.
motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Moving forward, PUD 21-03.
This is a request for approval of a planned unit development to develop housing options and pedestrian mixed-use town center with an interconnected commercial, residential, and civic uses, and a network of both active and passive amenities. This is a 487-acre property, and it's located on the north side of 36 and the south side of County Road 100 North and the and east of County Road 500 East. In this particular case, let's see. So in this particular case, the staff does not have currently our review complete. That we have a fiscal plan, a traffic impact study, and the zone. I've reviewed the zoning ordinance and the plan a couple times, but without having the fiscal plan and the traffic impact study completely reviewed by our consultants, and then by the town manager and the public works director, we weren't prepared to offer you a recommendation at this time.
So tonight, is this a preliminary PUD or is this the actual PUD?
Well, it's the preliminary plan unit development is what's been filed.
Preliminary.
Yeah.
So, okay.
But it's been filed. This is the one for the public hearing. It's just that we just haven't completed our review. So we can't provide you a recommendation. I've discussed this with the petitioner, and the petitioner wants to go forward with a public hearing. We would concur that going forward with a public hearing, getting comments out, both from the petitioner and from remonstrators, would be appropriate and worthwhile. But what we would ask is that after you've done that, is that you don't make a recommendation tonight, that you continue to the December meeting and then rehear it, and we will have our recommendation done at that time. It's a complex and large plan unit development, and I don't think that, I think we want to provide you the input from our different town staffs so that you can make a thorough revision. But we also want the petitioner the opportunity to at least introduce it to you, explain it to you, so that you can get your head sort of wrapped around it, because this is a transformative plan unit development that you're going to see tonight. It's going to make a big difference on the west side of the town.
So I've got questions for staff. So looks like there was a neighborhood planning meeting or neighborhood meeting October 26th with approximately 48 of the neighboring residents. The town wasn't there for that meeting.
No, we weren't. Yeah, we weren't there. The neighborhood meeting is a requirement of the plan unit development, so they did hold that neighborhood meeting. At your stations, you each have 3 letters that have already been submitted to the file. If you have the opportunity to peruse them, I believe the remonstrators are in the audience. But it's just that there are some letters of remonstrance in the file.
Questions for staff?
So this butts right up against our parks, right?
Yes.
Have they been brought in to the discussions? Has the park department?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Parks Department, Town Manager,
They're good.
Public Works Director. This has been in the works for several months. So we've had several meetings with the petitioner. Of course, we haven't got to the level of detail in those discussions to like we would with the fiscal plan and the traffic impact study. And so
we're really happy with our parks, and we got some outstanding parks, and so they're for this. They like this.
Yes.
Thank you.
Because this development, it will augment those parks. There'll be some additional trails and other sorts of things associated with this and interconnecting with the town center that make it an interesting addition to the park system.
Has the school had any input on this yet?
That's my question too.
Yeah, the school, and you'll hear about it a little bit later. I think the school is neutral on it. And I think the school is neutral because a significant portion of this development is age restricted with specific limitations on how long school age children can live in it. And so because a significant portion of this development will not generate school children, I think the school is neutral on it. I think the school probably will have some input on street widths and other sorts of things so that they can serve the remainder of the development with their bus system. But I think you'll find about half of this development is an age-restricted community.
So with the size and the impact, would it be inappropriate to ask a school member or staff to at least have a comment for us or
No.
be here at the next meeting?
No, we could definitely reach out to the school and do that and get comments from them.
Because of the size and the impact. And then secondly, Mr. Taylor, because it's preliminary PUD, anything we need to be aware of, pay attention to, anything that outside our normal issues?
No, it is rather, this is a large, impactful proposed PUD. So again, what I would keep an eye on is, the petitioner is going to ask to write their own ordinance. It's going to be very detailed because it is so many acres and has various parts of it. I've already heard the introduction of the town council, so I'm a little familiar with it. But so I think at this stage, you want to just kind of take in the information and start identifying concerns that you have or any issues that you have. It is a very large proposal, so there are going to be a lot of things to consider. It's very unique too. I don't think that you will have heard anything like it. And so it's very unique and it's full of mixed use. So there is a town center aspect and then there's different kinds of residential uses. So at this stage, I would say, and I agree with the staff's recommendation, this two-step approach will actually, I think, be good because of the breadth of information. And then being able to come back after your staff gives you some very detailed recommendations will also benefit you. So at this stage, I would say just try to get a feel for the proposal and then start identifying issues and things that concern you or you have questions about. And we can get some of those out of the way tonight, or you can continue to study those. And that I think would be the most efficient approach for you tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Other questions for staff?
Do we know how many landowners are involved in this parcel? I assume it's not all one. They're bundling land, different owners together.
Yeah, I don't have that.
It's one.
It's
Yeah,
just
the petitioner may
one
know
person
that.
owns all of this. Wow. I'm impressed with that person. Okay, thank you. I withdraw my question.
Could we get a copy of the town council's minutes for the next meeting, just to review?
For the, when they went to the town council at the last meeting? Yeah, sure.
Just their comments, concerns.
Other questions for staff? I just want to wait till you were done taking notes.
Oh,
before
just
I
taking notes. Yeah,
get
I'm
moving.
listening.
Between you and Mr. Taylor, the pens are, the smoke is burning over there, so I just wanted to wait. Any other questions for staff or comments? Okay. In that case, at 7:28, will petitioner could please begin.
Thank you. Good evening, Jeff Banning with Banning Engineering, 853 Columbia Road, Suite 101 in Plainfield. Have the development and design team here with us, Jason Coyle from our office, Sean McKinnis, who's going to be doing the majority of the presentation this evening, and Doug Wagner. So couple things. One, we agree with what the staff's approach is. Just so everyone understands, we've really been working on this project since early in 2019. So this has been 2.5 year project. So we've put a lot of thought and effort into this, and I just want everyone to understand that. So just so everyone's aware, this is a very exciting and transformational project. For years, we've been talking about a downtown town hall, maybe potential relocation, new city center, what have you. We think that this project, as it would develop, would get that gathering place that the town of Avon just hasn't had for years. So anyway, just want to let you know that. We know that we are going to be continued this evening, so we are looking forward to a lot of input, a lot of comments, hopefully be able to answer a lot of questions. And we're looking forward to that, working with you here this evening. As Dan said, we did this presentation in front of the town council, kind of an informal presentation last Thursday at their council meeting. What we did is we went through a PowerPoint presentation. We'd be happy to answer questions during the presentation, but it might flow better if we can get through the presentation and then take questions after that. Because there are a lot of elements to this project, and I think a lot of the great comments that you had here this evening already will kind of play out through that presentation. Just so everyone knows, the project is located west of town here, or west of Town Hall here. It actually goes from US 36 all the way up to 10th Street, 100 North. That's a mile. It goes from Whitelit Creek all the way over to County Road 500, which is the road that Manager's Power is on. There are some areas that are cut out as part of that. There's a couple subdivisions that Muirfield Woods, we've got Price's Avondale Heights kind of cut out of that area. We've got some commercial areas that are cut out from that as well. And then we got some properties that adjoin the development. Besides those, we've got Valley Vista Estates to the west of us, west of 500. We've got some ground to the north of us that's pretty well undeveloped. Sycamore Estates to the east of, or Sycamore Ridge, I should say, to the east of us. Just so everyone knows, the current property is zoned C3, R1, R2, and R1A. And do I have control of the PowerPoint? Oh, perfect. All right. Let's see if we can make this work. So here's the project. Oh, it looks like everybody's kind of looking over here. So here's the project. Here's Avon Avenue, Town Hall. Let me go to the next slide here. This gives you a little better idea. So here is the project. Avondale Heights, Muirfield Woods, the school, Valley Vista. So fairly large area. And then there's the actual property. It's 487 acres. As I said, this area here is currently zoned C3. There's area all throughout that has zoning classifications of R1, R2, and R1A. The majority of the property that surrounds this is actually zoned in the Hendricks County zoning classifications. We can talk about that further if that's something that you would like to do. As I said, really, we're trying to take this entire parcel and incorporate that into a combined development that will work together. And as I said, Sean will be talking about that. Another point that all of you made as we were having the Q&A here at the beginning, we've had multiple meetings with Avon staff. We've had multiple meetings with Avon schools as long as over 2 years ago, as we've gone through and tried to create how we're going to develop this property. We've talked to them not only about, school children, we've talked to them about bus traffic. We've talked to them about how to deal with their bus network. And then also from a financial standpoint, we've met with Washington Township, we've met with neighborhood groups, we've met with NDOT, which will be a big portion of this project as well. We've met with utility companies and many others. As we said earlier, we were at the town council meeting on Thursday evening just to give this high-level presentation. So there's been a lot going on with this project for quite a while. One of the other things that we heard, or I heard earlier, was talking about trails, talking about parks. I love them. I think we all do. The town has done a great job with that. This property has a significant, as everyone knows, the town built this trail all the way up to 10th Street underneath 36 and over to Washington Township Park. It's my hope one day that that connects to Brownsburg, it connects to Plainfield and goes even further. And we're well on our way to making that happen. In our development, as you'll see, there will be a lot of trail connections to the existing trail and a lot of trails throughout our development. You will also see that there's a lot of woods and a lot of contours on the property, a lot of relief. And once again, you'll see some slides that will show how we're dealing with that. If you've been on this trail, this is just a gorgeous trail along White Lake Creek. And I think you're going to see that we've done a really nice job of working with the character of the property to come up with our layout. I think one other thing that's really unique about this is we have a draft report that was given to us in November of 2018. The town commissioned a study to look at a potential town hall retail hub in this area right here. We have looked at that plan. We have put our plan together knowing that that had been completed and have tried to play off of that to try to make that really a huge element of this project. Previously, there was a development. I think there were probably at least 3 of you might have been in previous plan commission meetings. There was a previous developer that was a part of this project probably 3 or more years ago. We feel like our plan is far superior and different from that plan. So I just want to put that out there. And we think, like I said, we think we've got a really good plan here. One last thing before I turn it over to Sean. We've been through the town ordinances, not only zoning, but subdivision ordinances. We've looked at the comp plan. We've looked at the trail plan, parks plan. So we've incorporated all these different elements into this project as we've moved forward. And so with that being said, I'm done, I think, for the evening, and we're going to turn it over to Sean. So thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. For the record, I'm Sean McInnes with Republic Development. I'm at 13578 East 131st Street, Suite 200, Fishers, 46037. Thank you, Commissioners, for agreeing to allow us to give you this presentation tonight and sort of give you a high-level understanding of what East and Gray is all about. I see on your desks that you have the 2.5, 3-inch binder that has our ordinance in it. You can understand the amount of time that we spent with staff in putting that together. We know it's going to take considerable effort to go through it, for you all to go through it and understand it as well. So what we really wanted to do this evening was just give you sort of a high-level context of what this project is. My first slide just really starts with the vision. As developers, we like to go into communities and try to conceive of individual projects that fit those communities. As you can see, our vision statement is community-based, based on traditional design elements. We want to create a vibrant village center that matches with your study that was commissioned a few years ago to support social, economic, and ecological health, and really start to develop a place for connections within the town of Avon. As Jeff mentioned, this was a very collaborative process. Started in May of 2019. We've met with school officials, town officials. I think what was an interesting aspect of this was a town advisory group that was put together by John Taylor and Ryan that consisted of members of the Plan Commission, the RDC staff, and really helped advise us. We had certain milestones where we would meet with them, show where we were with the design, include their feedback to make certain that we were aligning our plan with what Avon town officials really felt needed to be on this site. We also backed that up with real-time market analysis. We worked with fantastic design firms and engineers. Thank you, Jeff and Jason. Financial consultants have been involved in this process, both on our side and financial consultants on behalf of the town of Avon.
We've spoken with numerous retailers, home builders, brokers, and multifamily developers as well, builders as well, just to make certain that we understood the market is as good as we thought we did. So what you see here is the culmination of almost a year and a half, 2 years worth of work and putting the site together and coming up with the site plan. Just a few large data points. The total site's 487 acres. The open space is roughly 40%, and total projected development value in today's dollars is around 480 million. So in Site A, which is the 36 or the 71 acres down here along US 36 that Jeff had mentioned earlier as being Zone C1, is what we call the Riverwalk District. Within that district, we have planned 124,000 square feet of commercial or civic space and up to a maximum of 586 units of residential. That would be comprised of rentals and for sale both. As we move north into Area B, we have the empty nester. There's 43 units there. We move on north to Area C. It's called the Family Move Up with 103 units. In Area D, the Executive Homes area with 59 units. And I'll go through these in more detail here in future slides. The estate homes on Area E, which is along and has its access along County Road 100. It does not connect via street through the development. It connects to 100. It's more of a semi-custom home area. And then Area F, which Bill alluded to, is the age-restricted 55 older. This is the area that will not allow children for more than 90 days per year. So it'll have zero impact on the schools because kids will not be able to live there. So that's sort of the broad overview. I'm going to go sort of quickly because we have a lot of slides here tonight, but stop me if you have questions or we can do it at the end. So at the Riverwalk District, as we zoom in, this is US 36 along the south. Whitelet Creek is just off the page here. So it's comprised of mixed-use buildings, standalone restaurant, office, multifamily lofts, townhomes for sale and for rent product. Where we start with our main drive coming off of US 36, this is really the core of the development. This is the mixed-use area where you have commercial, restaurant, retailers on the first floor with residential above, in particular in these sort of purple-colored buildings. We surround those buildings by or with additional rental product, higher density units to help support those areas, and we terminate it with the civic space that's represented there in white. Now, we're not certain what the town of Avon will ultimately do with that space, but if we look at the report from 2018, it's a potential future home for the municipal complex. We've also created an area sort of surrounded by the buildings, a small park area where you could do functions such as a farmer's market or music in the park. You could close down streets based on our redundancy of street pattern in here. You could close off a few of these streets and have even larger events for the town of Avon in that area. And as we move out towards the west, this is where our for sale product is. It could be comprised of either townhomes or higher density single family homes. As I mentioned, we have sort of a space for an iconic restaurant reserved with a visibility to US 36. And then we have a larger office building on US 36 as well to provide some more daytime population. So this slide just gives us a sense of the character. This is, again, looking from 36 up the entrance and terminating with the Civic Center view. You can see that we have larger sidewalks that allow for the retailers to spill outside with outdoor dining and things like that. And also just to be able to gather and have nice large sidewalks and places for people to mill about. What we see as sort of the crown jewel or the heart of this area, if you will, is this potential civic space right at the north end of the core of the Riverwalk District. Its terminus point as you're driving north is a connector building that could be a multi-use type building. You could have events within it or meetings or things like that. It's a glass pavilion so that you can see through it and see the beautiful terrain on the north side of it. It drops down into a heavily wooded ravine. It's just a beautiful area. And then the ability to flank that on either side with potential administrative buildings or any other type of municipal use that, or civic use that the town may wish to put there. So here's some character representation, some character images for Area B. You've got mixed-use buildings, again, with commercial on the first floor and apartments above, townhomes, and sort of the streetscape on what those could look like. There's representations of what the restaurant and the office buildings and the flats and lofts could look like as well. So as we move up to Area B, Sub-Area B, now we're in the empty nester area. We expect these to be buyers that, you know, the children are gone. They're perhaps downsizing and want a smaller home. It's very likely that we're going to have single story homes. There is a possibility for potentially a 2-story home within this area, but it's more likely that it's going to be a single story type of housing situation there. Area C in the family move up. This is where the homes begin to get larger. They're built for families. We do have some restrictions on the garages here. They are front loaded, but they can only protrude like 6 feet from the front of the house and no more than that. And it's sort of the move up area within the development. As we move up to the executive area, this is where we completely de-emphasize the garages. They must be side loaded or rear loaded. And the price of these homes and the lots are going up, lot size and home prices both going up in that particular area. As we get to Area E, this is the estate lots and even higher end home type, larger lots, again, side loaded garages. And this area is, you know, likely to be anywhere from $800,000 over $1 million and up. As we get to Area F, you're looking at close to 2/3 of the residential units within the residential districts are in Area F. There's 3 distinct products that we'll be bringing online and intermixing. So it may look like there's 3 separate areas, but the 3 products will be intermingled in between each area. These are the age restricted uses, again, 55 and older, and no children allowed anywhere within or more than 90 days within that section. You see some character images there to the right. These are based on one of the national builders that we've been talking to. So I think Jeff mentioned, you know, trees were a big part of what we tried to plan around here. We have over 55 acres of tree preservation or acres of land that will remain undeveloped that we've designed around. And then our open space and trail system. As you can see, we've got 232.5 acres is what this plan is showing out of 487 that will be open space within the development. You can see that there's an extensive trail system. Several of them connect to the Whitelet Creek multi-use path, which gives us access then down to the Washington Township parks across Whitelet Creek with a future bridge potential to connect to this facility, the existing town hall and the parks around it as well. We're looking at multiple uses of transportation. There's walking, biking, the opportunity for golf carts as well. Some of these trails will be wide enough for that use, particularly from this particular area, the HOPA community. HOPA is an acronym for the Housing for Older Persons Act that was passed out of Washington. Not certain how long ago that was, but it's what HOPA stands for. And so basically that's what we have. Now, we met with, I guess, close to 50 of the residents, and a recurring theme was drainage. We have drainage problems in our existing neighborhood. How is this going to impact our drainage? So we spent a good bit of time studying that. And I'm going to turn this over to Jason Coyle from Banning to talk through that right now.
Good evening, Plan Commission members. My name is Jason Coyle with Banning Engineering, 853 Columbia Road, Suite 101, Plainfield, Indiana. And as Sean alluded to, yes, probably the overarching conversation at our neighborhood meeting was drainage. I still get a few phone calls today with people asking about drainage. So if you allow this to just take a few minutes to explain kind of our preliminary drainage design for this development. And I think when I'm done speaking, I think most of those viewing on Facebook or online, or even in the audience, will have great assurances that we are handling it properly. And I know Greg Ilko's here. Greg has reviewed our preliminary drainage report as well. And I think he'll be in agreement with what I have to say. So first of all, what we do is we look at the existing topo and figure out our existing drainage basins, also known as our pre-developed drainage basins. And we try to figure out where the water's going and where the concentration of that water is outletting to in the different areas. As you kind of see, we've got a large portion of the site in yellow here. That large portion in that shaded yellow makes its way over to White Lick Creek, kind of moves from the kind of the northwest area to the southeast area and outletting along White Lick Creek. We've got a couple of other areas on the west portion of the site, starting with existing Basin 7. It makes its way kind of south towards Muirfield Village and outletting right there at the northeast corner of Muirfield Village. Muirfield Village has a pond here that where water is currently being directed. Again, as you move north, existing Basin 8 outlets through Avondale Heights, I'm sorry, and continues on through. And then we've got several basins along 500 that kind of move from east to west, passing under 500. So those are our existing basins. Next, we look at 3 different storm events. We look at the 2-year storm event, a 10-year storm event, a 100-year storm event. And you can see the different rainfall totals in each of those events. So 2-year event, about 3 inches of rain in 24 hours, 10-year, 4.28 inches in 24 hours, and the 100-year, 6.3 inches in 24 hours. So that's kind of our standard for what we're looking at. And just for your edification, according to the weather.gov website, the average monthly rainfall depths in the Indianapolis area during the spring season, that would be over April, May, and June, is about 4.7 inches per month, and that's over the last 20 years. So we take those defined pre-developed basins, the existing basins, and we take those storm events, and we come up with a peak discharge rate per basin per storm event, and that's measured in cubic feet per second. So when you think of a cubic foot, probably the best way to explain a cubic foot is your refrigerators that you buy are measured in cubic feet. So the average U.S. refrigerator is somewhere between 20 and 25 cubic feet. So when you look at Basin 7 and in a 2-year storm, during the peak discharge, 34.7 cubic feet per second are rolling through Muirfield Village, or right in that northeast corner of Muirfield Village towards their pond. In a 10-year event, it's 60.3, so about two and a half refrigerators rolling down through per second. And then in a 100-year event, 103 cubic feet per second. So once again, that's like 4 refrigerators. I'm trying to explain this so that my kids could understand it, right? They know what a refrigerator is. So, you can also see the other basins as well, right? Basin 10, that's a large area coming down to 500. During the 2-year, 43 cubic feet per second. In the 10-year, 76, almost 77. And then in the 100-year, 134 cubic feet per second. That's peak discharge. So we're evaluating all of these things as we move through our design. And there is design criteria near the Town of Avon stormwater ordinance, it requires that our post-developed peak rate for a 10-year storm must not exceed the pre-developed peak rate for a 2-year storm event. And furthermore, our post-developed peak rate for a 100-year storm event must not exceed the pre-developed peak rate for a 100-year storm event. And so we've got criteria, so we can take all that criteria and we can start coming up with our design. So what we've done is we've delineated the basins. We've strategically placed our ponds so that we can meet those requirements that I just set forth. So you can see the large orange area here, right? So all of that area now in our preliminary design and our findings, we're trying to, our greatest attempt is going to be to route all of that water to White Lick Creek. So if you recall, we previously had a large basin up in this area that was coming towards 500. We had another basin down in this area that was coming towards 500, another small, very small basin coming towards 500. All that water is now being diverted away from 500 to the greatest extent possible. There may be some water that lands on the roadside or a roadside ditch that makes its way through existing pipes under 500 to those properties, but the large majority of it is being routed away from 500, away from those homes along 500 to White Lick Creek. So we've got one post-developed outlet, which is White Lick Creek, right north of Rockville Road or 36. Our second one is this red area here. So once again, we're routing all the water in this red area towards Muirfield Village, the northeast corner of Muirfield Village. And this is the area I want to talk about. The other thing I want you to notice is all that water that was previously going through Avondale Heights, we're routing around Avondale Heights. Avondale Heights is a septic community. I've talked to several landowners within that community, and their yards are quite spongy in the spring, especially because of the discharge from their septics in their septic fields and just rain events. So we're routing all that water away from them. That's going to greatly improve their yards and their living enjoyment in their community. So, well, the last slide I want to get to is now we've kind of zeroed in on this area north of Muirfield Village, and you can kind of see. Remember, we had basin 7, 8, and 9, and that's kind of what our post-developed basins look like. We've got now 8, 9, 10, and 11 that are coming down through here. And I just, once again, copied the previous peak discharge rates per storm event, measured in cubic feet per second for basin 7, 8, 9. And then I gave you a total. But what I want you to know about that total is that total means absolutely nothing, okay? Because we have to look back at basin 7. I'm sorry, I went one more slide. We have to look back at basin 7. So once again, our 10-year post-developed peak rate release is less than, it can be less than or equal to the 2-year pre-developed peak rate. And our 100-year post-developed peak rate is less than, or it could be equal to the 10-year pre-developed peak rate. So you can kind of see here between the two numbers, right? We are considerably less. And this is all in our preliminary design. Obviously, as we go through, we get approval for the zoning. We will zero in this even deeper. Our reports will continue to go to Greg Ilko for review. And if this changes, I'm sure we're going to come back to the adjacent landowners and let them know of a change during our primary platting and so forth. So we thought it was important to share this information with you, with those viewing, with those in the audience, to kind of help them understand that to the greatest extent possible, we're trying to make their life on their land much more enjoyable. And I think we've done a great job at that. At this point, I'm going to turn the presentation back over to Sean Sullivan, and I'll be here later after the meeting. I'd be happy to, I'm so sorry. Sean McInnes, my bad. But I'll be here later. I got business cards. I'll be happy to pass those out to any landowners that have further questions about their property. But thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Thank you for enduring that. We just thought it was important, particularly for the residents. Oh, sorry, Sean McInnes, Republic Development. Thank you. we had so many residents at our meeting that were concerned about how this drainage was going to impact the existing neighborhoods, that we wanted to just make certain that we addressed it so they could see it and be able to comment on it as well. So just a couple of highlight slides here, and then we'll conclude our presentation. The Riverwalk District, it's made up of a great mix of uses. We discussed briefly the redundancy of the traffic pattern. You'll be able to come in off of US 36 or Old Main. There's a connection that goes all the way up to 100, and then connections up into the balance of the residential. Sort of a grid pattern down here in the Riverwalk District. Great opportunities for outdoor social space. We're really going to be focusing on local merchants. We don't see the retailers in here or the restaurants being the national chains. This really needs to be local focused. It's one of the secret ingredients that makes these town centers special. There'll be a variety of residential uses and overall density. We wanted to throw that in there in the mixed use area of 8.25 units per acre, which in our experience is relatively low. We have properties where we've done some of this where we're over 30 units to the acre, but we think this will support this particular venture. In the neighborhood districts, neighborhoods B through F, one of the number one things, and I think we almost got a little applause when we announced this at the neighborhood meeting, there'll be no vinyl siding allowed anywhere in this development. There could be a vinyl soffit or an element like that, but no vinyl siding on the homes whatsoever. We have larger minimum home sizes than the current zoning required in the proposed PUD. As we discussed, or I discussed as we went through the slides, the garages have been de-emphasized. There's a variety of builders, which will bring in a variety of architectural styles and also be able to accommodate a broader population with various lifestyles. The density on this property even is a total of 1.68 units per acre for the areas B through F. So with that, we're happy to entertain questions, comments. Thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity. We look forward to seeing you next month.
Questions for Petitioner from Planning Commission?
Yes, I actually have several questions. One in particular, a lot of it relating to the drainage, but why the large emphasis on the 55 plus community? Is that a demographic that you anticipate increasing in Hendricks County? Because the eastern half of Hendricks County has been an influx of people with families. And so I'm just curious as to why that is taking up such a large percentage of your residential.
Well, for two reasons primarily, and there's probably more than this off the top of my head, though. It's a very underserved market right now. The age 55 plus around the entire Indianapolis MSA is an underserved market. Secondly, it's one of the really good ingredients for making a village center or a town center work, because you have a daytime population that'll come out of that 55 plus neighborhood that operates on different time schedules. They may be retired. They don't leave for work at 8 in the morning, so that impacts traffic positively. They can be the daytime customers for the restaurants and the retail. They really help to support that area. So it's one of the sort of the secret ingredients that you want to put with one of these town centers if you can.
And I noticed that in the middle of the middle F section, you've got, looks like a community center.
Yeah, so there are two community centers or amenity centers for the neighborhood. There'll be one that's sort of a grand center for the 55 plus, and it'll cater to that 55 plus crowd. One of the builders, or actually a couple of the different builders that we've talked to about this, they designed specifically for that demographic. And so it'll be exclusive to those users. Now there's nearly 500 homes there, so it'll be a large facility. The second facility will be here, which will then take care of the rest of the neighborhood of the single family. Then there is a third facility that will be part of the rental. You may have the leasing office there and a pool and a clubhouse down in the southeast corner as well.
So first of all, I want to say, I think I love this idea. I completely love the idea of Avon having a proper downtown government multi-use, all of that. I completely love that idea. That being said, I do have a question with regards to the drainage. So you've given us a lot of information relating to 5 or 10 years, 20 years, 100 years. We all know that extreme storm events are going to happen more frequently and are going to become stronger. So those numbers are going to become irrelevant. I appreciate that you are setting the standard for being better than what it is required. But with all of that drainage water, with such a large amount of drainage water now going into White Lick Creek, have you put anything in terms of creating a wetlands in order to help reduce the amount of sediment that'll be flowing in from all that new hard surface into White Lick Creek? Has there been any thought at all put into the content of the water that's going to be going into White Lick Creek that is being diverted from other areas now?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I appreciate that question. We will get to that when we get to construction documents.
Okay.
I'm not exactly certain what the town of Avon standards are in other communities. We have aqua swirls. We have natural areas that where, and I think we have one. Let me go back. You can see that this particular area is a natural basin that we'll use to convey water as well, that help, as BMP, best management practices. All those things will be considered, and we'll work with the town on exactly how we need to do that.
Well, this is a preliminary presentation, and so I love pulling in the walking trails and incorporating it into our park system, but part of working with the park system is protecting the park system.
Absolutely.
And that includes the waterways. And I would love to see an indication of some of the ideas you have for creating a wetland so that the water that, when we have these large storm events that flows into White Lick Creek, isn't, that we have a way of naturally helping to control some of that flow, and actually also helping to keep that water from being as dirty as it might otherwise be.
Great, thanks.
Other questions for the planning commission?
Do you see this kind of, I applaud what you've done in terms of your literature. You've certainly answered a lot of questions. You've thrown a lot of questions out there. And again, your answers have been pretty comprehensive from what I can tell. Do you see this kind of, with the millennials, with some of the attractions, like on some of your quote unquote lower levels, kind of having this as a one-stop shop where ultimately people will go through different phases? They may be at one of the varieties and move on to another. If you give a thought
That's
to that.
absolutely right. That's absolutely right. You'll be able to come in here, and perhaps you're a recent college graduate or a college student. You want to live in this type of urban environment with the restaurants and the bars down below you. You have the opportunity to move up to your first home buy, perhaps in the townhomes. And then, as we've indicated on this slide, these are sort of move up neighborhoods all the way across until you get to the point where you may want to retire and be on a smaller lot with no maintenance. And
You'll never leave.
Yeah.
Check anytime you like. Never leave.
Other questions?
Have you considered, I know this is all preliminary as far as the configuration of the subdivision itself, in particular the streets. I notice they're very straight. Have you considered any curvilinear type streets to slow the traffic a little bit?
Yeah, so the topography had a lot to do with where these streets are. As Jeff alluded to at the beginning of the presentation, there is quite a bit of grade change over this section of the property. Now, in the Riverwalk District itself, we want to be on a grid pattern so that we can have that redundancy. So we use different traffic calming methods with using wider or narrower street widths, wider medians, landscaping, wider sidewalks, things that help calm the streets. rather than meandering the streets to do that.
Okay. And on these preliminary meetings, have you had any, and I know you just spoke to the drainage, but have you had any adjoining owners that just came out and said that they have drainage issues in their lot and so on? Have you had that?
Yeah, we've had a couple, several actually, that, specifically said, this pond, and Jason, you may correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's this pond here. Is that correct? That they have issues with it now.
Mhm.
So the big concern is what's going to happen if we're draining through it. And so what Jason tried to show is we're going to cut that drainage from what's currently going into the property right now. We're going to cut it down. We're not going in and fixing their pond, but hopefully sending less water there is going to help.
Okay.
Other questions for petitioner?
So if I want to go visit a site that's similar to this that you've already developed, is there one around here that I could go see?
Well, I think the closest would be Saxony. It's about an 800-acre development. It straddles Fishers and Noblesville on I-69. That development, the village center was done, or the retail center, if you will, was done by Simon. It's an 80-acre, the Hamilton Town Center. It wasn't developed by us, but we have the 800 acres around it and the mix of office, industrial, retail, many different housing types that we've done over there that we've been developing for nearly 20 years now on that particular site. I think if you go down to downtown Carmel or downtown Fishers, and maybe Fishers may be one that's the closest to sort of this configuration where you have a civic or municipal use anchoring the mixed use coming in off of the main road. With Fishers, they come in off of 116th Street, and they anchor with the municipal complex, which has been there since the early 90s, and all of the development is filled in around it. That may be the closest to sort of how this might feel, how it's laid out.
Thank you.
Is there an anticipation that the government center, and I really like that annex in between the two buildings, I guess, that with the glass, I think that's a lovely idea. But is there an anticipation of there being a space like a performing art, not a performing arts center, but a performing arts space?
Yeah, and that's what we really see here. Part of the activation process that we did in Saxony, we had movies in the park, music in the park. There's an Independence Day celebration that we do there, lots of those things. Fishers is involved in some of them. Some of them, it's just the associations that do it. But we really see that activation happening right here. And then being able to spill out into the streets, again, because of the street redundancy, you could close off at different areas and really be able to spill out into the street and host, several thousand people if you wanted to.
I know we're really early and you got a lot of hoops to jump through, but what's kind of your timeline that you are thinking of in your head for this?
Well, at this point in time, we're looking at trying to get through our approvals process through the winter and into the early spring, and then we'll start construction documents. That'll take the better part of the summer of next year, maybe even through into early fall. And then we'll have to get into approvals, working with Bill and Greg and trying to get these construction documents approved. So it's likely that it'll be an early 23 start, when the weather breaks. We see the Village Center really breaking out into two phases. If I can get back to the map. So we'll put in the majority of the infrastructure in the first phase of the Riverwalk District, and probably a little more than half of the multifamily. There's a possibility that some of the single family could come in as well in the form of either townhomes or a high density single family product. And then with the second phase of that, perhaps that's a 2 to 3 year build. As we go through there, get it built, get it stabilized. It's probably an 18 to 24 month construction timeline. And then you've got the stabilization, lease up, and all of that after that. Market conditions will dictate how quickly that goes. But then we would come in right behind it with the second phase. And I think Doug might be able to speak to this a little bit more succinctly than I can, but on the residential, I think that they're looking at being able to do this in perhaps 3 phases in area F that come in, with this center section coming first. And then probably each one of these sections will likely be done in 2 phases. And on a similar time frame. We'll want all of this to come up at the same time. So it'll be on a similar time frame with the Riverwalk District.
So you'll be breaking ground on all of the residential areas at the same time
That's
with an
correct.
anticipation of there being a 2 to 3 year total build out?
Probably, I would say probably somewhere closer to 7, I believe is what I heard Larry say the other night with the council, that the residential itself is probably a 7-year total build. But each one of the different sections will have infrastructure come in the first phase
Okay.
so that each product is available.
Other questions for petitioner? Hearing none at 8:15, I'm going to open up the public comment. Do we have a list of, can you start with?
This one's Doug Wagner.
Yeah, you told me to sign up, so I did.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, so public hearing's closed.
Mark Downey.
I don't know if it's possible with your staff, but first of all, I handed out my
Before you
letter.
get started, could you please state your
Oh, I'm
name
sorry.
and address for the
I
record,
thought he
please?
announced me. I'm Mark Downey. My wife Kathy is back here in the audience. And we live at 5700 East County Road, 75 North in Avon. And that's, I don't know, how many of you go to River Birch Elementary School? None of you? Then you have no idea what our traffic problems are. We live on 75 North. If you go east from the River Birch Elementary School, about 1,000 feet, you'll come upon a red brick house and a pole barn, and that's our property. We have 12 acres there. Probably 50% of our acreage is being bordered by this proposed development. So it's a major impact to us because we have a rather large financial investment in this. Let me ask you now, did you all receive the letter that I submitted today to staff?
We have, yes.
Okay. If you go to the back, and I apologize because being retired, not having the availability of office equipment, our old colored printer didn't do a very good job. But if you look at the, it's page 205. I don't know if you have, if your staff can call that up on the monitor up here. But the road you see pretty much in the middle is County Road 75 North. The north is to the right on that page. The large property you see right just below halfway down the page, right in the middle, is our 12 acres.
Okay.
Okay?
Am I right there?
Yeah. We have a house up on the ridge and a pole barn. And as you go down 75 North and you like curvy, windy roads to slow down traffic, that's the road that everybody takes to go to River Birch Elementary School every day. And that road is 17 feet wide. And so in the letter, we address the issues of transportation, road construction, those type of issues. So with that in mind, maybe the best thing for me to do is just kind of read through the letter. And as it comes up, if you want, stop me and I'll try to address that item. Thank you for allowing us to comment on the proposed development known as Eastern Gregg. While we fully understand that the land that surrounds our property is desired by developers and will ultimately be developed, we have concerns with the impact upon our property as well as our concerns on the Avon public safety and a holistic approach to complying with the town's development standards within the development and tangentially to this property. In other words, there's a road system there with 75 North and 600 that if you look at all those roads, all those people, because E is not connected, all those people that want to go out to the north and go in County Road 100 North, hit Avon Avenue and go north to Brownsburg or go further on east, basically 10th Street to bypass all the construction on 267, or not 267, it's 36. They're going to go that road. And based on your thoroughfare plan, you're trying to create a north-south road that dumps out at 600 East. 600 East is the road that's on the west side of White Lake Creek. So that road, I don't really have a pointer, but up there you can see the road on the right side of their property comes up and, okay, thanks. Yeah, this is your trail. Comes up to that corner. Sorry, a little bit nervous. And this is a road system that's bringing all these homes, people from down here that want to cut through, and all of these people coming out this way and up there, that's their one access to the north. So our concern is not that the development should be stopped. Our concern is the developer is making no plans for upgrading that road to the same standards that the town enforces upon all your developers of having about 24 foot of width of pavement for 2-lane traffic. This road here, 75 North and 600 up until it hits County Road there, is 17 foot wide and has traffic both ways. If you want to drive by that area and see the properties that are going to be developed, take this nice scenic drive. It's beautiful. But you'll notice that as you go through these curving roads, you'll see there's no shoulders and there's ruts that are about 1.5 to 2 foot wide and up to 6 inches deep, because as the school traffic's coming in at 9 o'clock in the morning and they drop their kids off and people are still coming in, the same traffic is going right back out that road. And when they hit each other at 35 mile an hour, they decide that they want to use my front yard. So we've got a nice rutted area out there. And I've been told in the past when Mark Sanders had the property that the developer would have to fix these roads. That was told to me by, at that time, your town engineer. So we just want to remind you of the fact that if you're going to do this, you're going to create a holistic development that blends in the community. Make sure that it's points of access. Oops, sorry, hit the wrong button. Make sure your points of access up here are properly constructed, properly designed. And that's the text of a lot of what I've put in here. So currently, the plan shows no improvements to County Road 75 North in front of the property, in front of our property, and the property owned by Clarinda or Love, who's our neighbor. Also, the project plans to connect their roads and streets to County Road 600 East. This is the only connection of the largest part of their development to the north. While the planning process requires an independent review of the transportation plan, it goes without saying that the town's review process must include a thorough evaluation of the immediate affected streets to be in compliance with the town's development standards. I'm going to be redundant here, but currently the above referenced streets are only 17 feet wide with no shoulders. The volume of traffic basically consists of school traffic as well as public shortcut from County Road 100 North to County Road 500 East. The volume is peaked as parents deliver their children to River Birch Elementary School in the morning and pick them up again in the afternoon. The ruts along the street are a result of these vehicles having to drive off the pavement to avoid colliding. The intersection of County Road 75 North, County Road 600 East, and the proposed street to the south is further compromised by the trail crossing. So you're going to have people coming from the south, you're going to have people coming from the west, you're going to have people coming down from the north, and you've got trail walkers or bikers going across that area. So you're going to have to pay particular attention to making sure that you've got, the crosswalks are properly done for the trail. The trail needs to be positioned properly with the traffic that's coming through there. And if you go down there right now, it's I don't know. I'll just say there's a lot of signs. So anyway, I would recommend that all of you take an opportunity before the December meeting, which I guess we'll have to come back to, where you'll do your final approval. But I would say that all of you need to drive this area and try to sit there and say, how are we going to handle all this traffic unless the town's going to have to pay to fix that road, which they should have done when they annexed it, or you're going to put the monkey on the back of the developer to get it done. But don't ignore it. Okay, one other comment that I'll make that concerns us is the close proximity of the cul-de-sac immediately south of 75 North. That places the backside of the houses along the cul-de-sac in direct view of the front of our house. The elevation of the building sites in our house are such that the 40-foot buffer will have little or no effect at our view of the back of these homes. And we've talked to the developer about this, but if I can do this, like I said, right there, that cul-de-sac that's right on the top of a ridge. My house is on the top of a ridge, and the road 75 North is in the valley. If you're up on this ridge, you look straight across over that ridge, and you can plant all the trees you want down here. But until they're 20 years old and they're up about 30, 40 feet, they're not going to block our view of the back end of these houses. So we would much prefer, and as we go on into the next page, we propose to the developer that they not construct this cul-de-sac and that they put that cost into upgrades of County Road 75 North and have these lot frontages front to County Road 75 North, turn the houses around and have them have driveways out on 75 North rather than having them into the cul-de-sac and everybody's going to drive by looking at the backyards of all these people. So we requested that these lots be larger, wider, and to be estate homes at a higher price point. Doug Wagner of Republic told us that they would look at our request and that they would respond to us. Unfortunately, prior to me walking into the meeting tonight, they made no response to us. We went to the public meeting and they said they were going to respond to me then. I never heard back from them. Tonight, he informed me that, we're looking at all these things and that we'll get back with you. So I'll hold him to that promise. And I hope that you guys will hold him to that promise that we're going to have maybe a preliminary design review meeting or what have you to where we can discuss a few of these items. And again, while you look at me under the title as a remonstrator, we're not so much against this project. We think I think what they're proposing is very high end, very upscale, everything else. But again, my wife and I moved out to this community. I've been retired for 6 years, so that's going to kind of give away some of my age. But the bottom line is we moved out here and found a property with 12 acres. We moved out here because we wanted the beauty of nature, the surrounding areas, the trees, the properties. We have deer across our property. We have turkeys across our property. It's a very, very wonderful thing to have a little space. It's not always the fact that we've got to build a lot of houses on top of each other. Now, I understand that that happens, but nonetheless, it's an issue to where there are some of us that like these open spaces, and we like nature, and we like the trees, and we don't want them cut down. That was the thing we objected to with Mr. Sanders' project. He was going to just eradicate the woods and make lakes in all the ravines. So with that, I'll say thank you for allowing us to offer our comments, and we hope someone will contact us to discuss and advise us as to the direction of this PUD on these issues.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Alan Yaki.
This is Alan Yaki, 6563 Kings Court, Avon, Indiana. On November the 30th, 1995, when this town was created, we had nothing but the paperwork, and we had hopes for the future. Among those hopes for the future were, well, a building like this, a park like this, playgrounds. We actually never thought about a disc golf course, but that came along. A police force, and a police force isolated from politics by making it what we believe to be the first model merit police department in the state of Indiana. As we look around, those things all seem to have happened. But there was the one thing that was there, and that was we now have a town. There's Brownsburg, there's Plainfield, there's Danville. They've all got a downtown or a town center. We really need one. But how are we going to do that? Well, actually, Banning Engineers, hello, was around and is, I think, probably fully aware of what I'm saying. He also knows the people I'm talking about and the ones that have occupied the various positions in this town and moved it forward. When we heard of this proposal and had an opportunity to see what it was, I thought, oh my, the gods have smiled. This could not have been imagined, I don't think. Certainly I wouldn't have imagined it back in 95, 96, 97, 2000. So we've been looking at this. I've looked at it. I, of course, have been a while since I've been involved in municipal law. I'm technically still an active lawyer, but functionally retired. But this, and there may be some things you want to change about it, this looks good. It would be wonderful to have a town center, to have the things that we see here. And I, for one, am impressed with the presentation. I've sat through years of plan commission meetings and town council meetings and seen presentations for decades. This is a commendable one. So there may be some things you need to look at and alter here, but this looks like a thing to do. And I will say one other thing about the plan to move forward here. I know that there were meetings with the property owners in the area, and many of them have had big concerns, but we do know one of them that lived north of this project went to the meeting and came to us at our American Legion post and said, "We like it." So that's all I really have to say. Please move forward on this.
Thank you. Next. Hello.
Deanna Moore.
Hi, Deanna Moore. I live at 4890 Rutledge Road, which is north of the planned development. I want to kind of piggyback on Mr. Downey's concern around traffic and so forth. To get off on 10th Street, we have to pull out onto 10th Street at the bottom of the hill on a road called 475 East. I'm very concerned with the increase in traffic that's already happening and is going to get worse. That something be done about that intersection. I think, and I'm going to speak for those that live in Oak Bend, probably have the same concerns because their pullout point is also kind of hidden. I'm hoping that, if the town doesn't own the ownership of addressing those types of intersections, that we're working with the county highway department to ensure that those, and I'm just going to say 475 East, be taken into consideration to being, looked at, make less dangerous. I'd hate to either myself, my husband, or our kids, or any of our neighbors lose a life because of a missed opportunity. So that's all I had to say.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next.
No one else has signed up.
Would anyone care to speak that is not signed up to speak tonight? Yes. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
My name is James Weir. My address is 71 Galloway Street, Avon, 46123. I believe you have a copy of a letter that I delivered to Bill Peoples. Galloway Street is the sub-street that connects to Section F, the southernmost part, from Muirfield Village. So that street is my front yard. My backyard is the pond that has been recommended to take in the surface water from what looks like two sections of Section F. That is more than a retaining pond. It's actually a spring-fed pond. Even in the worst part of the summer drought, that pond did not go down in level because of the springs that feed it. You put two more neighborhoods of water being released into that pond, and it will be a difficult problem. So if you want to talk about an impact study, I think we were impacted. We're impacted front and back. This neighborhood and this development looks like a grand plan, and we have no objection to the overall plan, but specifically that substreet is a problem, and flowing water into that pond in Muirfield Village is a problem that goes beyond the studies that have been done. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak that hasn't spoke? Seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing at 8:39. Okay. Questions, comments from commission?
Just for clarity's sake, from the last person that spoke, I thought he said they were trying to direct the flow of the water not to go into the Merrifield Pond. Is that, am I correct or am I wrong on that?
Possible we can pull up that slide again. Yeah, yes, please. Oh, and one more, please. Thank you. Yeah, so, no, they are correct. So currently, right now, you can see Basin 7 in the pre-developed condition. During a 2-year storm, once again, 35 cubic feet per second is rolling through their pond currently. Okay, so
I'm looking on page 200. There's another small pond just north of that one.
yes,
So what's that?
yeah. Well, that's how we reduce the amount of the peak discharge to that site by our ponds. So we have ponds throughout our development that will hold that water and release it at a much slower rate than what they're currently seeing. Okay, without this development, they're going to continue to have the problems that they have with water. Our development holds that water, retains it, and releases it at a much slower rate, as shown on the screen.
So you're saying you're helping them, but I don't think they believe you. Was that where we're at?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from staff? I'm sorry, from the commission. Okay. Hearing nothing else. Sorry, Mr. Taylor. A motion to continue this PUD. So can I get a motion to continue this PUD?
I would like to move that we continue agenda item PUD 21. Let me start again. I would like to move that we continue agenda item PUD 21-03 Easton Gray PUD to the next scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission, which is set for December 20th.
I'll second.
Discussion or questions on the motion? Vote, please.
Catherine Ramsberg,
4.
Phil Reed,
4.
Randy Meyer,
4.
Ed Rosenbaum,
4.
James Petrius,
4. Okay, next on our agenda, meeting calendar. Mr. Peebles, do you want to?
Oh, just for your approval, 2022 meeting calendar. BTA has already approved their meeting calendar for 2022. We have not. Actually, I think we've handed it to you, but we've never actually brought it to you for approval. So all we're asking you to do is approve the 2022 calendar so we can start distributing it to developers. They sort of want to know what's their filing deadlines for the next year.
Okay, under other business, anything else? Okay,
I move that we approve the calendar that was passed out by staff at the last meeting for 2022.
Second.
any questions or discussion on the motion? Do we need a roll call vote? We don't need a roll call vote. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I would also like to suggest that instead of that we just hang on to these for the Eastern Gray instead of throwing them away. That's a lot of paper. Or handing them back to Bill.
Well, we can take it either way. I would say, I mean, all we're gonna do is hand them right back to you. So I would suggest that it gives you another month to take a look at them.
Yep.
And if you come up with some questions.
So a couple things real quick. Number one, I would like to state, this is Thanksgiving, so I'm thankful for some of the things that we have done here in Avon. Mr. Peebles walked in under a difficult situation, and typically a planning director or a department of planning staff, by and large, the dictionary definition is for the analysis, education, and guidance on land usage and town development in order to create a better community, and I think Mr. Peebles has done his best to do that, so I appreciate that.
Well done.
Staff as well, and the staff as well. So I appreciate that. Number two, we are blessed with Mr. Cannon's presence while we're here. Is there anything Mr. Cannon would like to say about anything or developments coming forward, or any issues we have to look forward to in the next month, Mr. Cannon?
I think so, but I agree with Bill's doing a fantastic job. You got good work, Bill.
All right.
Boss.
So, other than that, our next regularly scheduled meeting is Monday, December 20th at 6:30. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I second.
All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.